you've had some great comments about how portfolio ops teams can actually support sourcing teams in more of like a sales or sourcing enablement sort of way. I always loved when I could borrow, time from our growth team for, I guess you'd say dog fooding and like, fixing our own processes for how we do sourcing, because we had some real experts in go to market. But like, how have you seen firms actually, allowing or leveraging their portfolio ops teams to support sourcing? Like, do you have any really good examples of what success looks like there?
Yeah. So the analogy here, this should be really intuitive for investors in B2B companies, because B2B companies increasingly have, their sales team, but then supporting their sales team, they have a product marketing team, a sales enablement team, a sales ops team, and those can blend together. But effectively, all of those teams are helping increase sales velocity of their sellers by arming them with the right content at the right time, by training them better. And so one thing that some of the ways that applies, if you think of portfolio ops as sourcing enablement, a sales enablement team might have call scripts or objection handling. So like, hey, these are common things that if you're on a first call, we'll do training on here's how you can kind of break into this call. And that's something that, sourcing teams might have to some extent on their own. But there could also be different types of research. So if we research into a company and we know that they're hiring for a CFO, we can believe that they probably have a bunch of these pain points. And so here are the things that you can hit them with, given this data that that they're hiring for a CFO and what we've seen across all of our companies that are hiring for a CFO. Or if they have, in the same way that you might have battle cards, a sales enablement team might produce battle cards for their sales reps. A portfolio ops team could help support their sourcing team with similar types of battle cards. If they say this, you say that. The other thing that's interesting are effectively cold email collateral. So whether that's actually helping script cold email sequences. So like, hey, here's a 6-touch sequence that we help create. You can tailor it, but this is one that you can send out. Creating in the same way that a marketing team or a product marketing team at a SaaS business might be creating annual reports, downloadable white papers, little kind of snippets. One of the most successful sourcers I ever worked with was always asking me for ratios. She's like, hey, I get really positive responses from founders when I give them really concrete things. Like, it looks like you have a really lean ratio of CSMs to revenue. You might be running into these things. Here are some things. Here's some tactics that we found. Or when she could put in numbers. Typically, companies. This kind of, Dan, comes back to your point around providing data. So typically, companies in our portfolio have this type of ratio of developers to PMs for this reason. It looks like you have this ratio. There might be these things, and so kind of using data to pique their interest, and then have relevant resources that get followed on. And so kind of the last piece is probably training those associates who are doing the sourcing to make sure that they can wield these things in the right way. So a lot of firms will do brown bag lunch type of things. It's like, hey, we want to get better at asking some smart questions early to anticipate tech diligence questions. And so we want to get our associates better up to speed with what kind of questions they can ask and what kind of answers they should look for to kind of sniff out some things that we're interested in when it comes to tech diligence. And so it requires having some understanding, and this could be coming from, if you have that center of excellence technology leader, or it could be coming from a third-party advisor, on educating your associates so that they can ask better questions, pick up on better signals. So this all kind of comes back to sales training is to associate training. Sales enablement is to, or sourcing enablement is to sales enablement. Product marketing could also be done by kind of your operations team.
And I 100% agree with all the things, like, and there's some really interesting nuggets in there. Like the ratios one is interesting, right? Like you're directly deriving some sort of insight, that, looking at your portfolio and looking at past experience and applying that toward, a prospect. And yeah, gosh, if you can approach somebody with that sort of insight and kind of say like, here's why that matters and here's what we think we can do about it, that's huge. But you use the word could in there a lot. And like, I'm getting hung up on that because I felt that, right? Like I felt the could, and I saw the could, and I knew that like our portfolio, like our growth team could help us, but is it actually happening? Are you finding like, are people actually leveraging? Like, I know they could and they should, like, and I want to, but like, are you seeing it actually happen in effective ways where like it's incentivized or allowed or encouraged at the firm to leverage portfolio op support sourcing?
In limited ways. In limited ways. At most firms that we work with, in limited and growing ways. So like one of the most common are events. And so if you're having an event, if you have, say you have a group of senior advisors, one of those senior advisors is the former CFO of a public company. And he's going to be being a guest expert at a roundtable on scaling from, 10 million in revenue to IPO. You absolutely can and should have a nice registration page for that, put together a nice email campaign, send it out to relevant prospects. And so one thing that I have seen firms doing really successfully is, okay, we're making this investment especially for an event, or maybe for a piece of content that we're sharing with our portfolio. Let's spin up a corresponding lightweight outreach campaign that we can do to prospects to invite them to this event.